So before moving on and start talking about the instruments a bit, let me remind you the issue that markets left to themselves don't necessarily work at their best all the time. We talk about market failure when that happens, and there's another big role for the government, right? Making sure that if supply and demand fail to touch each other, to reach each other, to satisfy each other, to find an equilibrium, we say, then the government stepping in and taking care of these market failures is again an extremely important thing. Now, let's talk about instruments. We said very clearly spending, taxation, and transfer. Spending. There are two ways of spending for the government. One way is to spend financing the expenditure through an increase in taxation. That's reasonable, right? That happens in our households as well. When we want to spend more, we probably work overtime or we find a second part-time job. Well, in that sense, the government does the same thing. If it believes that more public spending is needed, but no debts can possibly be taken upon itself, then it will increase tax income. That is a balanced budget type of spending. But that's not the only way. There's another way. The other way is to get into debt. You know, governments don't like to raise taxes very much because raising taxes means losing votes, right? So what they could do is to deficit spend. They decide on some amount of spending, on something they like to spend upon, and they borrow. They don't tax the residents. They borrow on the market. So our savings and the bank's liquidity, they go into financing these bonds, and so the government is able to spend the money it wants to spend. In this instance, of course, it will have to pay back the loan sooner or later. But for the time being, that's not our major preoccupation. We will have to study that more carefully, of course. So you can see that taxation and income, spending, tax income and spending, they are in some kind of a relationship. Now transfers, the third instrument. What is a transfer? Well, a transfer is money that the government transfers on authority from some social group or some bunch of individuals, whatever you like, to another social group or other individuals. Take, I don't know, income from tariff protection. Right? Well, you know that a government could, if it wanted, impose a tariff that is a duty on the import of goods. Who gets that money? Well, the government may transfer it to somebody. For instance, it may transfer it to workers who have lost their jobs because of the foreign competition. That's usually done in many countries. So transfers are also helping to smooth income distribution inequalities, right? There is a lot of talk about inequalities over the last few years, and the government is seen as an agent towards working towards more equality in income distribution. So, you know, we want the government to work towards higher employment rates. We want it to make sure that employment levels are stable all the time. You know, we don't want to see large fluctuations, because large fluctuations generate a lot of suffering in the downturns, right? We don't want to see that. We would like not to see that. It can tax to redistribute income. You know, it can tax higher bracket parts of the population and not tax the other parts of the population with lower incomes. It can transfer money. So inequality is another the care of inequality is another goal that we can assume most governments tackle around the world.